Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BjjBrick Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about growing your local jiu-jitsu. Now, we definitely cannot grow the sport of jiu-jitsu if we cannot grow it locally, and we're going to talk about how to make your gym better. As always, I'm joined by my two buddies, Byron Jabara, Joe Thomas, affectionately known as the Laverne and Shirley of the jiu-jitsu world. How are you guys today?
Gary, we're doing great. We're happy to be here on episode 272, even as Laverne and Shirley.
Yep, we're drinking
I'm doing good, but I'm not getting that reference, Gary. That must be from like some really old TV show or something.
Yeah, you know, I'm just sitting here drinking a Slotsky's beer, watching Laverne and Shirley on the old television.
Got those rabbit ears dialed in, huh?
They are dialed in. Just like this show, we're dialed in. Just like Byron's audiobook, your first year of BJJ. You know, that'll get you dialed in on your first year of jiu-jitsu. It's a tough year. It's a year a lot of people, you know, drop out of jiu-jitsu. Our goal, as we're talking about today, growing your local jiu-jitsu, we cannot grow it if you quit during your first year. And Byron had that in mind when he started his audiobook, Your First Year of BJJ. We have a link to it on show notes. 2.5 hours of content, walking you through your first year, letting you know what to expect and how to get the most out of your jiu-jitsu in that first year. One topic I really like is finding the right gym. Finding the right gym can be a big key to staying in jiu-jitsu. And some areas may only have one gym, but you know, other areas you're going to have 5, 6, 10 gyms. You know, jiu-jitsu has grown so much, and it's important to find a class, or find a gym that works good for you. So definitely check this book out. Like I said, it's Byron's audiobook, $11.99, 2.5 hours of content. We have a link to it on the show notes.
Yep, and the money goes and helps the podcast. That's it's been a big help in keeping it going strong. Hey, before I forget, I want to give a quick mention to an app I've been using on my telephone device called Marune, spelled Marune. It's a jiu-jitsu app that helps you track and log your training. And as of recently, with everybody kind of getting on board with this thing and a lot of listeners, it's a social network as well. Man, it's great getting on here and hitting the little friends button and seeing all the people on here that are training. And I kind of think everybody out here is from the podcast that I have, as a friend on here, because we mentioned it a few weeks ago and some people added me and that was really nice. And see your guys' pictures scroll through. So you train and then you log it. You put gi or no gi, and you put down like an hour of training and 30 minutes of rolling or whatever. And you can also have a picture pop up for that training session. It's really kind of neat. And then at the end of the week or month, you can see how much you've trained and what you trained. I don't know. It's really cool, and I'm really digging it. I'm having fun looking at all the people on there and what they're doing. So like originally it was a just training thing, but the social aspect of it is really neat. So I'll spell it one more time. It's Marune, Marune, and we're not sponsored by them, but I'm just loving this app. It's a lot of fun. And I know that Gary's working on getting the app as well, but he's trying to get it to where his phone can do apps.
Hey, you want to know the crazy thing is I'm installing it right now.
All right. So I might as well say this. Please add us. If you type in BjjBrick, I pop right up. And I don't know, what Gary will be or Joe, but it's
installing right now.
Nice. Gary, type your name as Gary BjjBrick, and they can find you that way. Joe, I don't know if you've already registered or anything like that, but
I think I have it, but I can change my username. I think it's just J Thomas now, so I'll add a BjjBrick to it.
Something in there, make us easier to find. Then add us, and it is really fun.
I was going to do BjjBrick 2, the number 2, but they won't let you use numbers as part of a username. So,
I think it has a place for. I don't know. It has my name, and my profile, and then it has my username, and so it's got a cool thing.
Anyway,
you can log in. Yeah, I don't want to spend all episode talking about an app. We've got a lot to talk about today. Important episode. Do want to run by a off the mat lesson here, pretty quick. I'm a firefighter, and we get called out to all kinds of stuff. Obviously fires and car accidents and these sort of things. We also get called out for medical calls and just accidents around the house and those sort of things. You never want to see people get hurt, but that happens all the time. And we made a call on an older man, probably in his 70s. Sorry, Gary, that's not really that old, is it?
No, not at all.
Who had fallen and basically landed right on his face, and he was fine, except for he broke his nose. He had quite a bit of blood on him, and we're getting him kind of cleaned up, and they were going to take him in with the ambulance and get him to the doctor and that sort of thing, and he was all. It's amazing how tough people are. I think as they get older, like maybe your nerves don't work the same. I've seen some pretty, I guess, unfortunate or almost like sad. You just feel so sorry for people that, especially when they're older and they get hurt. But like they just sit there and they don't seem like they're in that much pain. He really was pretty fine, but he was just like he was upset that he did this, and it's causing a big thing, and it just really bothered him. And it's weird what he was upset with and what he wasn't. But he had a dog walking around the house. He was a little excited because a bunch of people were in his house. And it was a pug. And I always like to, pet other people's dogs and stuff and try to be friendly. And I pointed out to the guy that sometimes when people get older and their pets, they kind of look alike. And since he just smashed his nose into the ground, he's going to look a little more like a pug. And that old man loved it. Oh, he's like, I'm going to use that. I like that. And it's just the wrong person. They would have thought I was some terrible person for even bringing that up. The right person, and it went over so well. And it's a joke he's probably telling occasionally to people that come over. And if his nose is still crooked, I don't know. He went in to get it fixed, I imagine. But it just gave him something to work with other than be distracted and upset. And I think in jiu-jitsu, and we'll talk about this today later on, about growing your jiu-jitsu locally, is when you're working with a person, try to feel out what they need. He needed to break the tension. He needed to not be upset with himself for tripping over a rug basically and falling on his face, and just to loosen up a little bit, and it really helped him, I think, quite a bit, just to have something to laugh about. How silly this whole situation. Well, at least I'm going to look more like my dog, which is an ugly dog. Sorry, pug lovers. I mean, they're cute dogs, but they have a smashed face, and so did he. So, read the person a little bit. What are they here for? What are they looking for? And adjust your jiu-jitsu experience or their experience based on that to the best you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've seen guys just getting into teaching. They maybe take a class and they come in, and for whatever reason, the material's not right for the room. And I've seen guys just carry on down that path, and they're frustrated, and the students are frustrated. And I've also watched other guys be able to just kind of evolve the lesson on the fly and tailor it to the students that are in the class. It's an awesome skill to have. So congratulations on making that old guy feel a little better there, Byron.
Gary, we've got a quote this week. What do we have?
Sorry, here.
You dropped? Okay.
I'm having technical difficulties.
The quote is technical difficulty.
I've got it. Okay. This week we have a quote from Carl Gustav Jung. Knowledge rests not upon truth alone, but upon error also. And basically, to me, that means, we have to make errors. We are going to learn from making mistakes. And in my opinion, that's the best way to learn. It's never going to be an easy path. We're just going to pick everything up. And, like I tell my kids, like I tell my training partners, we have to make errors, and that's the way we're going to learn. And it's important to make mistakes. We never want to be perfect. We never are going to be perfect. And making a mistake is going to take us down the path to learning.
A lot of times. Not all mistakes are good and not all mistakes are equal. But yeah, that's where the quotes... I like throwing the quote to Gary because I know he's not read it and he probably doesn't have it pulled up on the screen at the time.
Well, you were right about that. I had not read it. But man, I made some errors. I made some mistakes. But I learned from my lesson there, Byron.
Okay. No, I think bringing this back onto the mat as well, knowledge rests not upon truth alone. So what would truth be? Like you're in class, you're learning technique, you're learning things from an authority figure who's telling you how this works. And you could debate the finer points of any technique, but they're showing you this is how it works. Your jiu-jitsu knowledge doesn't rest solely on that. It also is built upon you making mistakes. So when you go roll, you try that, it doesn't work. Well, maybe you should work on that again next time you're on the mat, or tune it up right there, or work on it for a month. But you need to have those things not work for a little while, and fix them, and then try it again, and try it again, and that's what jiu-jitsu is, because nothing works on everybody. Like I guarantee you could have a world-class triangle choke, and there are still lots of people in this world who will get out of it, who you cannot set it up on. And it's just, and that being said, you can watch that same person get triangled by somebody else. It's very deep, the pool of knowledge and skill in jiu-jitsu. So, but you do need to make those errors, like Gary was saying. You can't be afraid to make errors. Don't go out there and do something stupid and just say, oh, it was a mistake. I was driving drunk and it was a mistake. That's not the kind of error we're talking about. We're talking about trying something that you're not quite good at and making an error and going back and getting a little bit better.
I was just having this conversation with one of my training partners yesterday morning, and he was talking about somebody shows him something. He drills it against a non-resisting partner and it works great. And then he goes out to roll, and it is not working. When he goes full-on sparring, he's having trouble getting it. And he was telling me he kind of just gives up on it. And, just like what you were saying there, Byron, it's like I was telling him, hey, don't give up on it. You're not going to learn it overnight. It's not going to just happen, especially against a, resisting opponent. You have to keep trying. You're going to get a little bit better each and every time out there. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to tweak it. And I remember Joe talking about this a couple weeks ago. Everybody's way to do the move might be a little bit different. We've all got different genetics. Some people got longer arms, some people got shorter arms, but just keep going at it. Don't give up. Like Byron said, it may take a month of working on it. Another thing Byron always told me when I would bring this up earlier in my career is like, Byron's like, hey, what you'll do when you're learning this move, you will start out practicing on a lower level person. Once you get it, you're doing really well against that person, move it up to, let's say, a blue belt. You start getting it to work on blue belts, then can you get it to work on somebody your own level? Let's say you're a purple belt. And that's when you've got it down. So, keep working at it. Keep trying. Don't just abandon a move just because it didn't work on day one.
Well, gentlemen, with that quote wrapped up, we got to get down to the main part of the episode.
Nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty. We've got to help grow your local jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu is growing all over the world. I really think that if you look at the numbers of like gis sold and just the amount of schools opening up, and a lot of them are doing well, or look at the tournaments. A lot of tournaments have more and more people every year. There's a lot of ways to look at jiu-jitsu, but it's growing. But we want to make sure that your local jiu-jitsu is growing, and it likely is, but it could be growing possibly a little bit better. And I think that, if you have a school with 20 students versus 30 students, that school with 30 students is a lot more stable, is a lot more likely to be there in a year. Each time you add, another set of people or another 10 or another 10% or whatever, the school's going to get stronger and more stable. So you want your school to be good, and you want your team to be good as well. The more people you have on your team, the more diversity it's going to have. And that's great. Sometimes you might be at a school, a very small school right now with like 3 people, and everyone wants to play top game. Okay, eventually you need to get some guard players in there, and that'll help everybody's game. But no matter where you're at, growing your local jiu-jitsu, I think, is a good thing. Whether your local jiu-jitsu is really small or it's already pretty big and healthy, you don't want to miss out on people who could be coming in there and learning and getting all the benefits that you're getting just because, this school has enough. Probably not if you ask your coach. They always want more. But really, what if that was the attitude when you showed up? We don't really need any more students. We got plenty. No, you want more. You're getting so much out of this. You share the jiu-jitsu with everybody. So we're trying to make the pie bigger, because everybody gets a slice of the pie, and people, one school or the other try to fight over, make sure their pie is, their slice is bigger than the other slice. But if the whole pie gets bigger, it's better for everybody.
The slices are bigger if the pie is bigger.
And Thanksgiving is coming up.
Either that or there's more of them. Depends on how you slice it. I want to say real quick that I do think a lot of people have the attitude that a smaller gym or medium-sized gym is okay with them. But honestly, I hear some of those same people talk about, they wish they had a noon class. They wish they had morning classes. They wish they had open mat every Saturday. And if your coach has to work a full-time job and teach jiu-jitsu, it's a lot to expect to have anything more than 5 nights a week. So
even that much is a lot.
So yeah, I go to a school that they just offer classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because the guy works a 40-hour week and he has a family. So if the community was big enough and if there was enough students, I'm sure he would cut back on his hours and teach more classes. But at this point, that's all he's got. So more power to a coach that can make a good living teaching jiu-jitsu, and then they can offer more classes as well.
There's nothing wrong with the small school, but if you build it, and even as a student, you're part of that process. And that's basically what we're talking. We're not talking. So I know we have coaches that listen to this show, and hopefully they'll gain some knowledge today about some of our ideas. Although none of us run a school, but this is really coming from the student's perspective. How could you help your coach grow the school? How could you help the team get bigger and stronger? That's what we're looking at from a student's perspective. I feel the biggest area of opportunity that probably goes not it doesn't go perfect for really anybody, but the biggest area that we could improve upon right away is the people that show up getting a higher percentage of somebody converting to being a member or taking classes or whatever they have, signing up. That's a big deal, because that person is the most likely person to do to start today because they showed up. I mean, that is so difficult to do for so many people just to show up to that first class. And if you just have them sit to the side and they sit there and watch and then get up and leave and they don't talk to anybody, they didn't meet anybody, I think this is a huge opportunity lost. And if you have 10 people come in and, they say, hey, I'm here to check out the class, and they sit there by themselves and they leave, let's just say 3 sign up. But if you actually, if that same person met a few of the students and maybe a couple of the brown belts, purple belts, black belts come up there and shake their hand, even white belts, people seem friendly and offer to, hey, do you have any questions about what's going on here and that sort of thing? And that's not necessarily always a coach's job. Anybody could talk to this person. And I think that, you go from having 3 stick around to having, you probably double that, maybe 6 or 7, who knows? I just think that the first impression of what is this gym like, it hits that person who is considering trying this, and it really pushes them to the next step.
Yeah, something along those lines that I think is really important is you see a new guy, you introduce yourself to him, ask him if they've ever been to a jiu-jitsu class before. And if they haven't, spend some time if you got 5 minutes before class, kind of telling them how things are going to go. We're going to line up. We're going to do some warm-ups. I've been to some classes where you go up and down the mat and it's, bear crawls and then alligator crawls and cherry pickers and forward rolls. And, man, if a guy's never been to a jiu-jitsu class, he may not know what half of those things are. So if you have that type of warm-up, introduce yourself. Tell them we're going to do a warm-up. There's some unique movements we're going to do. I'm going to line up next to you, and if you have any questions, just ask me or try and follow along. Nothing worse than just feeling like like you have no idea what's going on, and you're going the wrong direction up the mat, and you're doing the wrong movement, and that's probably not the way a guy wants to start out.
I like what you said there, Joe. Line up next to him. And, especially if that person's not just watching, if they're actually, came to a class and going to train. First of all, they're not going to know the moves, like Joe said. Second of all, they're going to be really slow on the moves. And when you're slow on a move, you may start feeling self-conscious that people are, looking at you like, hey, speed up or whatever. If you kind of get over to the side of the mat and Joe, who is a student that everybody knows at that gym, is taking his time and showing that person, walking them through it, encouraging them, that's going to make a big difference for that individual to show up next time and just keep on coming. But I like that one, Joe.
Thanks, Gary.
That's a great question to ask them, Joe, is, have you been to a jiu-jitsu class before? And that gives you a great kind of a way to figure out how you need to help them. I am a big fan of asking the new person, whether they're observing or their first day on the mat, like asking them some questions. And one of the big ones I ask them is, what brought you here? What brought you to jiu-jitsu? And based on that, it helps you decide where you want to take this. It lets you know they might say, I need to lose some weight and find a way to get in shape. Okay, perfect. Then you explain that the warm-ups are going to be great for this. You'll try to push yourself. I know it's going to be tough, and then we'll learn some technique, and just explain it that method. If they come in and say, I want to learn some self-defense, we'll say, okay, you're going to really want to pay attention to the technique, but when we roll, you might get some. We're going to actually do some sparring and that sort of thing, and really just kind of show them what jiu-jitsu is going to be able to do for the reason that they showed up. And really, as they're training, if somebody comes in just wanting to work out and they kind of chicken out for the roll portion, that's no matter what the reason is, that's
it's
fine.
It's tough your first day.
Yeah. That's the person. So I don't know even know what the rules are at Fox Fitness where I train. Like, it seems like sometimes the first day people don't roll. But a lot of times I'll say, hey, let's roll. And because I'm a black belt, I think that they just don't turn me down. They're a little nervous, but I make sure they have a lot of fun. And, I don't let them beat me up or anything, but I show them that this can be like the gentle art, and that, yes, I'm a black belt, I've been doing this for quite a while, but I'm not here to hurt anybody. It's just, and again, it goes towards judging why they're here. If there's some big tough guy that wants to show how tough they are, they're going to get a different experience than if there's somebody who's kind of timidly sticking their toe into the pool of jiu-jitsu to see how warm it is. I'm going to make sure they have a good time and roll that, that way. And even the tough guys, I'm not going to beat up. I'm going to just kind of do a better job of controlling them and letting them work a little bit harder than they probably should be working. But I think that just asking some questions, why are you here? How'd you find us? Do you know anybody here? Those sort of things, kind of get a measuring stick for how to help that person have a good first day.
Byron, I think the first question, though, we need to ask is, what is your name?
There you go.
And, it's always good to know the person's name and then repeat that name again. It's like, I see Byron. Hey, I'm Gary. What's your name, sir?
Hi, Gary. My name is Byron.
Hey, great to meet you, Byron. Say the name again. And it'll help me, remember that name. Try to include that name, right off the bat. So, let's say he's watching a class and I'm participating. Let's say we're done with the conditioning part and we get a water break. I can go over and I can say, hey, Byron, hey, did you like what you see there? You have any questions? And it's like, it's a little bit easier. The person's going to feel more comfortable if you use that person's name.
Here's an easy name trick. People are so visual and a name is so abstract most of the time. Give
them a nickname.
A nickname is good, like in your head. Let's just say that you happen to you meet a Gary, like this one here on the show today, and you already know another Gary. Well, one of the easiest things to do is to make the two Garys fight each other in your mind. Or if you know a Gary that is jiu-jitsu, I would have this Gary Kimura that Gary, because I know that this Gary on the podcast is really good at Kimuras. So I picture this guy get stuck in a Kimura by Gary, and really image that into my head, and I'll link those two people together. And I'm not going to forget, the Gary on the show's name, but when I see that guy next time, I'll think, okay, who beat him up in my mind? Oh, it was Gary. I had him at Kimura, and it'll make it so much easier because names are I struggle with names, but I'm working on that, and that's one little trick is as you meet more and more people, it becomes actually easier to remember names because you have a larger database to work from. And if I meet a Joe, I might have Joe just go up there and mentally just punch him right in the nose, and then I have that person is now a Joe. I don't know. Images in your mind are a great memory trick. And it's important when they come in. What Gary's getting at is when they come back the second day. If you've done anything right, they come back the second day and they walk in. You say, "Hey Joe, good to have you back." That is way more welcoming than just saying, "Hey, yeah, well, good to be glad you're back. What's your name again?"
And if you did meet him that first class, and "Hey Byron, good to meet you. Have a great night. Hopefully I'll see you here tomorrow." And then you're already in the gym and you're kind of in the back talking with people, and you see him walk in, go out there, go right to the door, greet him, make him feel welcome, make him or her feel welcome, introduce him around a little bit, before class starts to people there, make them feel comfortable before the first class. That I think will help a lot too.
The first day experience is pretty difficult. The gyms that do it 100% right actually have like a beginner's class, and they have a really nice instructor who's really knowledgeable come in and they teach other beginners, and they really kind of make it an easy thing to pick up. Most schools, I feel, don't have a beginner's class because they can't spend the time to teach 2 or 3 people a week or a month, a whole class. Like it's a commitment. Long term, it probably would be helpful if you had the time to do that with. But so you're having to throw somebody who is coming in for the first class into a class that is not for your first day, and that's where the social dynamics can help pick up the slack.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing about going up beside them for the warm-ups and stuff, don't just stop there. When you do the technique, volunteer to partner up with them. Make sure they get a roll in, a decent roll before they go home, and not to forget that sometimes the new guy walking in won't be brand new to jiu-jitsu. They might be a blue belt, just moved into town, or they might have a wrestling or a no-gi background. Make sure your ego's in check and don't feel a need to show how great you are, how great your school is. Make sure they're welcome, and make sure they get a good roll at the end of class that's appropriate for their skill level. And don't forget that sometimes a new guy will have some experience.
Another thing that used to happen back in the day is people would talk about other martial arts like in a negative light. I think jiu-jitsu is past the phase of like needing to prove itself, how great it is. You get a guy who comes in who's a black belt in karate. That's awesome. That's really cool. You spend all this commitment to karate. You've got a lot, and we're going to find ways to work that into your jiu-jitsu as well. But don't say, "Oh, karate, that's lame." Here we're learning how to choke people and break arms, and that's like, don't talk negative, because the odds are they spend a lot of time, energy, and heartache, and they have a lot invested in that. And for you to insult basically a stranger about something that they care a lot about is like calling their kids ugly. It's like if you went to a karate school and everybody was like bad-mouthing jiu-jitsu and how, no one's going to fight like that. That doesn't work. Who wants to lay on the ground with other dudes and all this sort of thing? Like that will bother you pretty quick. So if somebody is from another martial art, Taekwondo, or pick your other martial art, Jeet Kune Do. I know Gary spent a lot of time in that one, but they don't insult that. It doesn't help win them over by immediately throwing out insults and even joking about it. Just like, "Oh, that's cool. I don't really know much about that," because the odds are most of us have only done one thing, and most of us jiu-jitsu. But if you don't know much, say, "That's really cool. That I don't really know much about karate, but it sounds really cool. We're happy to have you learn jiu-jitsu. Cool that you're willing to branch out and check out other stuff." And I admire that. And I do admire that. It's really cool. It's an interesting thing. So, yep. I think that happens less and less as the art of jiu-jitsu gains confidence as a whole. Like we don't have to be cocky anymore. We know jiu-jitsu is really good. We don't need to insult the the guy that looks like Gary, we know we're handsome.
There I go again. The butt of the joke. No pun intended.
That's your good
Byron,
side.
Yeah. So Byron, now we've had the people walk in the door, and we've greeted him, and hopefully we've onboarded that person. I'm sitting there thinking, how can who else can we get? And I think the biggest thing is your friends. We're around people all day long, and if we've been doing jiu-jitsu, a good portion of our friends are jiu-jitsu friends. So that may take out half your friend category. And like Byron put in the show notes, both of Gary's friends already know about jiu-jitsu. So Byron's trying to make a little joke here that I only have two friends, which would be Joe and Craig Kennedy. Because Byron's definitely not one of my friends. But so yeah, both of my friends know about it. But that's a big talent pool right there. Your friends who do not train jiu-jitsu now, and if you're hanging out with them, you've had conversations about jiu-jitsu. They if they're asking you questions about it, they're curious. Even if they're not, invite them to a class. I mean, that's a great way to grow your local gym right there. It's a lot easier to come to class with somebody that hey, I'll come pick you up. I'll help you out the first day. I'll introduce you around. I'll make sure you have a good time. Make sure you bring some water. Here's the rules. You don't have a gi? No problem. I got an extra one. No reason buying a gi till you find out that you're going to stick with it and you really like it. Bring your friends to your gym and have a good time.
Gary, I think that idea about being willing to loan out your gi is key. I know a lot of people might feel weird about bringing home a sweaty gi that's full of somebody else's sweat, but I try and carry two all the time, and I think I've probably lent a gi out at least a half dozen times in the last year. You see a guy come in, whether you know him or not, like I said, it might not be for everybody to loan a stranger their gi, but I do it. It's kind of weird lining up in class and you're wearing basketball shorts and a T-shirt and everybody else has their show your rolls and 93 brand and all these fancy gis, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable if you're dressed like everybody else in the proper attire. So that's a great point.
Yeah, a lot of that's one thing. As we talked to the gym owners, have a couple of different size gis laying around the place, and if someone needs one, there you go, my friend. And have it not be like a total ratty, used up old gi. It doesn't need to be a super expensive gi, but have something that they wouldn't be embarrassed to wear. Something that they do at Fox Fitness is they have like a striped, it's like red, white, and blue striped like the long ways. It kind of looks kind of weird. Belt that he'll give you with one of these loaner gis your first day or two before you get your own stuff. And I don't know how they feel wearing that, but I guarantee you they get a different experience than if they just wear a regular belt or they don't wear a belt up, because as soon as they put that on, everybody in the room knows this person's brand new. They have zero experience. They don't know anything about this gym. And a lot of us make effort to be friendly to that person and outgoing. And really the biggest thing that bringing somebody back is that they feel like the easiest way is that they have a friend there that they're coming back to. And if it's you, like you brought your friend, tell them, hey, so next week, what day are we going to be able to make it together again? But a lot of times when it's not your friend, like they have to make the friend, and that can be hard for some people, but it's not if you're super nice. And then a lot of us jiu-jitsu people are very nice. Like it's easy to be nice in your own home. It's easy to be nice in your own environment. You're at home. You're in your own element. They're not. It might be their own environment in a week or two or a month, but right now it's a foreign and it's kind of intimidating. So be that friend for them. Like Gary's saying, bring your own friend. So, Gary said all the great stuff about bringing them in and that sort of thing. Tell them what to expect. Like Joe was saying, tell them kind of how the class is going to go down. That'll help take the nerves down. I always like to tell my coach, hey, bringing in my buddy Chris today. I work with him, or his cousin or whatever, and that way the coach has a heads up. Hopefully they'll pair you guys up together and let you work with them. If your coach doesn't let you pair with them, maybe you're a bit too aggressive. But when I bring somebody in, I always will let Jake know, hey man, I'm bringing a person in and their name is this, so he has a little time to learn their name ahead of time anyway. And then I always try to get them to meet a few other people there that I think that whose company they might enjoy. And okay, this person would probably like to know this one, and so hey, meet Jeremy here, or meet Brian, and people whose similar personalities, whatever, match up. That I don't know. As weird as all this is, because the odds are, I know, with Gary and I, we started out not knowing anybody, and it wasn't super friendly. Like, it was kind of a tough room, but we want a higher conversion rate. We want 60% of the people to show up to actually do jiu-jitsu, not 20%. I mean, some people will stick around no matter what, but we want to get more people that are kind of on the fence to come in for the next week, the next month, the whole year. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, something else you might want to consider, you're bringing a friend in. If they fall into sort of a niche as far as their age, or maybe it's a girl and there's not a lot of girls on the mat, if you know a class, like at my school, I know there's a couple classes where there's a lot of us old dudes in class. And if I meet some guy that's 53 years old and he's wanting to try jiu-jitsu, if I can, I'm going to try and invite him to one of those classes. I'm not going to invite him to the Friday night. Well, if it's the only class he can come to, I'll take him to whatever he can come to. But Friday night, we've got competition style class, and it's just 10-minute round after 10-minute round, high intensity. Might not be the best class for a 53-year-old to start with. If there's a woman's only class and you've got a female friend that's interested, get her in that class. Try and put them in a situation where they're going to be the most comfortable that they can be.
That's a very good point, Joe. And I think you've talked about this before, Byron. You were talking about a female coming to class, and you said, let's say you talked to a female from work or a friend of yours coming to class, that you might, call a couple extra. There's a couple females that train at your gym. It's like, hey, I'm bringing another female here on Tuesday night. Could you try to make it? I know normally you're not there on Tuesday night. And, a lot of times that'll happen too. I think that was a good idea. I don't remember how many weeks ago we talked about it, but I remember you bringing it up, Byron. I thought that's a good idea.
Yeah, when my wife was kind of just starting, it was like I wanted there to be other women there, because I thought, I know my wife fairly well. She walks into a room with 30 guys. That's a different experience than if there are 30 guys and 2 girls or somebody else. And I appreciate the women that are at Fox Fitness that have been helpful to my wife, and we're lucky at that school that they're all really good and they're all really friendly. But if somebody was not that, let's just say somebody was really good, but they weren't that friendly, I don't care at all if that person's going to show up for my wife's sake. I want the person who's really nice to be there and to get her comfortable during her first times. That's who I would be reaching out for and messaging on Facebook or whatever. So, yeah, bring in your friend. And another thing to think about when you bring your friend is, let's say you've been training for 6 months. So a lot of your friends do jiu-jitsu, but a lot of them don't. And to all the friends that don't train, most likely you are the most jiu-jitsu-y person that they know. You are, when they think of jiu-jitsu, they think of you. You're their jiu-jitsu expert, even if you've got, one stripe or you just got your white belt. Like, you're the person that does it, so you're the expert. To me, I think that role, people don't really see that from the other people's perspective. If you train, that person does jiu-jitsu, and from everybody else's eyes, you're probably pretty good at it, which you are, definitely compared to the with 2 months on the mat, you're way better than the average person who's never stepped on the mat. But all the people that look at you, and if they're thinking about jiu-jitsu, they're going to come to you for that. And anytime somebody starts asking questions about jiu-jitsu, I always invite them. Most of them are just curious about what some big part of my life is, and most of them, I think, have really no interest in doing it themselves. But if you ask me a question or two about jiu-jitsu, I'll say, hey, yeah, you're welcome anytime. Come down. I'll tell them what I train at, and if let's say I train out on the west side of town, they live out east, I'll tell them, oh yeah, there's some great schools out east. You might check out this one or this one. And it's you're now the representative for jiu-jitsu to everybody that knows you, that doesn't already train. Take that role and run with it.
Yeah, and a lot of times people don't really know what jiu-jitsu is. They watch the UFC. They hear jiu-jitsu during a UFC broadcast. They think that we're going to be punching and kicking each other. Maybe they want that. Maybe they don't. But I've seen people scared away when I've talked to them about jiu-jitsu. They think they're going to get punched and get kicked and get kneed and get elbowed. And, I have to explain it to them. And I do kind of have a funny story about my number one training partner that I train with all the time. He was, I worked with him, and we'd always talk about fitness. He was a bodybuilder, a big guy, and really liked to hit the weight. So we'd always talk about fitness. And, I started talking to him about jiu-jitsu and, piquing his interest. And it was probably a 3 or 4 month process of us talking about fitness and adding jiu-jitsu in there that I finally got him to come meet me one morning. And so he comes to meet me to train one morning, and we're all sitting around. There's a big wrestling mat out in the middle of nowhere, and everybody just sitting around talking before. It was an open mat style, and I grab him and we go out on the mat. I show him some stuff and everything, and he had a very good first time. But after class, when we were talking, ask him how he likes it and any questions or anything. I did such a bad job of explaining what jiu-jitsu was. He really thought he was going to a CrossFit class. He thought we were going to do handstand push-ups, throw medicine balls, swing some sledgehammers on tires. And I don't know how he got that. I guess I just didn't do a very good job. But the crazy thing is, somebody who thought they were doing a CrossFit workout came and did a jiu-jitsu workout, and probably been 7 years now, he's been hooked on jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of cool that even though I did such a bad job explaining it, he liked it enough, and here he is 7 years later still training.
So jiu-jitsu is better than CrossFit. I guess that's been established at this point.
Hey, though, didn't Byron already say earlier, never put down another form of exercise or fun?
Exercise.
Well, that's a stretch, but okay, Gary. I'm just not tough enough to do CrossFit.
But that's, so. I mean, you can do the same thing. If you get a guy who's been doing CrossFit for 3 years, don't make fun of it as they come in. Hey, that's cool. I bet you're in great shape. Let's do some jiu-jitsu. It isn't even anything like you don't have to say anything you don't believe, but don't insult something that's important to them. If somebody spent 3 years doing CrossFit, it's pretty important to them. And
yeah,
I bet they're in good shape.
A lot of people do both. I mean, they somewhat complement each other, I think. So, whatever makes you happy.
So we kind of covered the friends thing, talking. How do you guys talk about jiu-jitsu with your friends? Like, let's say, Joe, you're at a social gathering and somebody's talking with you, and they say, "So what is this you do? Jiu-jitsu? What is this? What is that about?" How do you answer that question?
Man, I tell them it's a little bit like UFC without any striking. A lot of people are familiar with that. I ask them, are you familiar with UFC? When you see the guys on the ground, if you took away the striking, you're seeing a lot of jiu-jitsu. So I guess that's kind of how I describe the physical aspect of it. But usually I talk more about the benefits I get out of it and the enjoyment I get from just being in class. And I got to be honest, I'm not in too many social settings anymore where it's not jiu-jitsu.
You're not allowed anymore.
So, but yeah, I don't know about you guys, but it can be kind of an awkward subject to bring up. So,
yeah, it can be an awkward subject to bring up. I've noticed sometimes, like, depending on what circle I'm at, somebody automatically thinks I'm a thug and likes fighting. And that's what I like is it's just my time to, talk about what jiu-jitsu really is. Because sometimes people do get different opinions of what jiu-jitsu is. But I'm kind of like Joe. I really like to talk about the aspects, the fitness aspects, the social aspect. I like to always tell people it's going to be one of the best workouts you've ever had. And if if they get a little worried, they're not in great shape. No, we go all different ways. It can be, we can tailor it so that you're not going 120% and, just, really gassing out and not being able to do anything. It's basically, control your own pace. I talk about the social aspects. Social aspects is really what keeps me going. the bond, like Joe just said, everything he really goes to in a social setting is jiu-jitsu related. There's a huge bond of people who train jiu-jitsu. Anybody who gets on the mat, we have so much respect for, and it's a very hard thing to do. We all kind of, how do I say it? It's when you start training, we're all on your side. We're all one big team. We all want to grow, have each person grow to their fullest potential. And we put the effort into making sure that person gets there, but it just doesn't happen on the mat. I mean, it happens, off the mat. Let's go back a couple episodes to Joe, his buddies that have helped him with his house. Dang, Joe, I forgot his name. Your buddy there with a construction company.
Javier San Miguel.
Yeah.
I trained with his brother Fernando last week.
Yep. Yeah, Javier. I mean, you wrote a great article about him. Javier's a great guy, and your gym is full of a bunch of people like Javier. That are there. They got your back, not just on the mat, which no pun intended. They got your back outside. A hurricane comes. You need to tear your house apart, put drywall up, clean everything up. I got a guy who helps me out with my trees, trims my trees all the time. I can guarantee you there's always a lawn guy in your gym. I mean, we've got so many people, and, I can remember helping people move, people helping me move, barbecues, getting together on weekends, getting together to go watch local fights, getting together to go watch movies, go out to eat. It's just, that's what is my favorite part of it. I mean, there's like 9 billion parts that I like, but there's but like
that's the best
Byron,
part.
You were saying, yeah. Anytime we can get somebody, they ask us a question, it's our turn to let them know. Sometimes they may have, myths about jiu-jitsu, total falsehoods, but we can, kind of let them know. And I did have one time a guy's like, "Oh, you train jiu-jitsu? Is that the sport where you lay on your back and you throw your legs up in the air and a guy gets between there?" And I was like, well, that's really not the jiu-jitsu I do. But, it's a good
you're
time
a top guy.
Yeah. Good time to explain really what jiu-jitsu is.
For the purposes of growth, that person's not going to show up. Like,
No.
At one point in time, they're just wanting to make a joke at your expense without trying to get beat up in the process. Like, take that, laugh it off, and that person who, yes, they're talking about jiu-jitsu, if they don't care about jiu-jitsu at all, they want to try to make a joke at you.
So you're saying if that guy says that and he's trying to use me as a butt of a joke, it's better to laugh it off than issue a formal challenge right in front of everybody and then fall to my back with my legs in the air?
You've had success with both those options, Gary. I don't want to take the tools out of your tool bag that you've used already successfully. But
speaking of getting people into the gym, I wanted to touch on something Gary just mentioned about. He mentioned different myths or false ideas that people had. He also said that sometimes people's first thought is that he's a thug. And
yeah, all those face tattoos and.
But there are some people out there that the thing that might be keeping them out of the gym is they're worried they can't hang with the other guys in there or the other athletes in there. They're not tough enough, or they're worried about getting injured. And that's one thing. If anybody shows any interest at all, that's one thing that I always try and address. And I make sure and tell people I'm 51 years old and I train with some tough guys. We train pretty high intensity level, and I never get hurt. These guys they know how to roll safe. They're not out to prove a point. It really is a safe environment, and as long as I don't do something stupid and hurt myself, I think I'm going to be fine. And I'm trying to make sure everybody knows that. These are the toughest guys I know, but they're also the nicest guys I know.
That's, thinking of what you just said there, Joe, that's a great way to, people are a little afraid of going in there that think they may get hurt. Let's say a 30-year-old professional is afraid to get hurt and doesn't want to show up to class with show up to work with black eyes and walking with a limp. And, then they see you at 51 years old and you're like, hey, I'm 51 years old. You're training with a bunch of killers. And, he sees you going hard. He sees one of those killers get an arm bar and let it go. Just get it to that point. They're not cranking anything. You guys get up, you're best friends. You smack hands and you do it again. And I think that's one thing that I really do like about jiu-jitsu is we were talking about the camaraderie before, but I can train with some young killers that are just really, really, really good. And, they could do whatever they wanted to me. And they're such good people that, they're so skilled. I'm not going to get hurt. And it's just, that's a good way to show somebody that, hey, if I can do it at this age against these young guys, anybody can do it.
Yeah. I answered the question a little differently than Joe. Somebody said, what is jiu-jitsu? My typical response has been, it's a little bit like wrestling, except for we're not trying to pin each other. We're trying to get chokes or joint locks. And
Byron, you might want to say a little bit like folk style or freestyle wrestling, because they may think pro wrestling.
I didn't even think about that. But
it's a little bit like wrestling, but moves off the top rope are not legal at white belt.
I just think that most people that don't even know about it would like the UFC come, like when you say it's kind of like UFC, but like, okay, I'm already not going to do that. But I do like how you start selling benefits right away. That's what I need to start doing. Like, what does jiu-jitsu do? It's like this. And what it does for me is that it keeps me in great shape. I go there; it's a ton of fun. I feel like the learning in potential for growth is like limitless. I'm always learning something new or getting better at something, and then stressing that safety factor. That's another big one, guys. You already mentioned it, but like nobody wants to go get hurt. Like that sounds terrible, but if you have been safe, stress that and like. I haven't missed work from jiu-jitsu in my entire career as a firefighter. I haven't missed a day from anything that's happening on the mat, and it's definitely a possibility. I could break a finger and I can't put my hand in the fire gloves. That'd be pretty crummy, but it hasn't happened yet. But more serious injuries, I've avoided them the entire time. I've been training, and a lot of times I've trained pretty hard. Sometimes I train smarter than harder, and I pick and choose sometimes. Okay, this guy's injury prone. You know what? It's not worth it. But that's all further discussion. But if you're not getting injured all the time, tell them that. It can be done safely. Like Joe says, you train with a bunch of studs, but they don't hurt you. That I don't know. I think that there's a lot of reasons why people don't go that are curious about it, and fear of injury is probably pretty high on the list. So another category we have here is like social media. It's help your gym out. Like if they're posting about a seminar, share the seminar. If you go to your gym's Facebook page, and like if they don't have a Facebook page, offer to start one. Like that could be really helpful, because a lot of people, surprise to some, Gary, a lot of people are on Facebook. Gary's with the Times, so he's on Facebook. But if your gym didn't have a Facebook page, start one for them, and make them the admin, or you both can run it, whatever. But most gyms have pages. That's easier than a website. Go rate them, give them a review, and tell them what it means to you, so everybody can see that. And I don't know. I think it's a little thing, but if somebody's looking for a gym, I think that does help. Seeing those reviews and seeing that people are going there and having fun and that sort of thing. So help them out online. Help them out with some social media. And you don't have to run the page to write a review. If you have a Facebook page, go write your gym review real quick.
And I think about how many of my friends that do not train jiu-jitsu have seen my Facebook posts or my Facebook shares, and when we're in person, will start asking me, "Hey, you train jiu-jitsu?" And I never even thought about it till you just started mentioning that. And, I got a lot of friends who do not train jiu-jitsu or even really know much about jiu-jitsu. And that has brought up so many conversations. So there's another good way, just as you're sharing the stuff, you're going to get people on your Facebook page are going to see that and then bring up, especially the curious people are going to bring up. And if somebody asks you a question about jiu-jitsu, they're curious about it. They would like to train. They're close to it. They just need somebody to help them out, somebody to make them feel comfortable to get to the gym and try it.
Gary, I like what you said on that. although I think it's not necessarily true. Like, if somebody asks you about jiu-jitsu, they might just be curious about jiu-jitsu or be curious about you and learning about jiu-jitsu as part of learning about you. But if you treat everybody like this person might be curious about training, treat them like that they're curious about it, and that opens the door up for everybody. So I like the attitude, Gary. Like, yeah, they're asking me about they definitely want to come train. Like, think that when they're asking you that, and you'll get the couple that you have written off. They're not going to train. Like that.
I just thought of something else. We're talking about. I'm sharing that stuff on Facebook, and a couple people see all my shares, and they're like, "Hey, that guy knows jiu-jitsu." And then they're out hanging out at their workplace, and they don't train jiu-jitsu, but they're friends with me on Facebook. And somebody comes up to them and says, "Man, did you watch the Conor McGregor fight?" "No, I didn't watch it." "Man, I'd really like to learn jiu-jitsu." "Hey, my buddy Gary trains jiu-jitsu. I can get you hooked up with him." I mean, just think of the power of, just by sharing stuff on Facebook. There's so many people that are going to see that and give them a resource if they have questions or they do want to train.
Yeah, and he's on it with that MySpace page, guys, if you want to follow him on there.
Well, how do you think I got Blue into doing oil wrestling when he joined his fraternity?
That's a good one, Gary. Another one here, Joe, supporting local tournaments.
Yep. Yeah, so mostly what we've talked about so far is growing your own gym, but part of growing your own gym may just be growing the jiu-jitsu community as a whole. And a couple of things you can do is one of them is to enter tournaments and support the outfit that's putting the tournaments on, represent your school well. But even if you don't feel like competing, go as a spectator and cheer your teammates on, get to know other people in the community. The bigger it gets as a whole, and the more enthusiasm there is for jiu-jitsu in your community, the easier it's going to be for you to grow your school.
Joe, a crazy thing happened to me a couple weeks ago. We had a local tournament, and I was going to coach a guy, and it was, as you walked into the venue where the tournament was, there was a huge basketball tournament going on. And behind, like, the first 10 basketball courts, you had to walk through it all, was the wrestling match, the jiu-jitsu match set up for the tournament. So as I'm walking back there, I see a guy that I know, and we talk for a second, and he's there watching his son, who's a big-time basketball player. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing here? You got your son playing basketball, or are you here watching?" I was like, "No, I'm going back to the jiu-jitsu tournament." And he's like, "Oh, that's kind of neat. My son's always talked about jiu-jitsu." And I was like, "Man, that's perfect. I know where he lives. He lives out on the west side of Wichita." And he's like, "Yeah, he's always talked about trying jiu-jitsu." And he's like, "We're really busy, because I started talking about him. I was like, "Hey, my buddy Jake Fox has a gym out on the west side. He's got a kids program. It'd be perfect for him. He would love it." And, I don't know if it's going to happen, but what he told me was, he's like, "Hey, once basketball season's over," which is the guy's main sport, he's like, "I'm going to get a hold of you and get hooked up with that." And so here it is, just going to jiu-jitsu gym or going to a jiu-jitsu tournament. People are playing basketball, and, hopefully that person, we will get him into jiu-jitsu. And you start him in jiu-jitsu young, and, it'll help his basketball, and vice versa. Basketball is going to help out in jiu-jitsu there too. Give him a couple different sports and a couple different avenues to have fun.
Yeah, it was. So I really I don't have a strong desire to compete, but that same tournament, it was a Fuji tournament here in Wichita a few weeks ago, and I was like, I'm going to go. I'll coach. I'm bringing my camera, and I'm going to take pictures of people. I'm going to send them the pictures that, like, I think people enjoy getting, a couple of good pictures of their matches if I could get them. I couldn't get everybody's pictures, but I could do that, and that'll be kind of fun. And it got to meet a lot of people. It got to meet or see people I haven't seen for a long time in the jiu-jitsu community, and I think that does help build those relationships. And it was really cool. The guy who was running the Fuji tournament came up and he's like, "Hey, are you one of the guys from the BjjBrick Podcast?" I'm like, "Yes." "Anything we could do for you?" I'm like, "Not really." Like, it was really nice of him to introduce himself, and he told me his name, and he's like, "Hey, I'll be around if you need anything. Give me a holler." And I was like, "Hey, man, I appreciate it."
Byron, tell tell the real story. The guy's like, hey, are you one of the guys from the BjjBrick Podcast? And Byron's like, yeah. And he's like, which one are you? And he's like, Byron. He's like, oh, okay. And then he walked away.
He's like, where's Gary?
Yeah, he wanted to know where Gary and Joe were
I said, Gary will be here when no-gi starts.
No, I was over there pitching pitching jiu-jitsu to the pitching jiu-jitsu. I'm flabbergasted right now. No, I was over there pitching jiu-jitsu to the basketball players.
Ah, nice. I'm over here preaching to the choir, and Gary's working on bringing new people in.
Yeah, yep, that's what I do.
So going to the tournaments, even as a spectator, and like you might find it to be very motivational. You might, hey, I want to do the next one. That looked like it was a lot of fun. That's great, and it also is good to, hopefully the environment there is healthy and the teams aren't like rivals, like in a big negative way. But rivalry is fine. But everybody's positive and trying to get the most out of their grappling. But like Joe was saying, go to seminars. That's it. That's a good way to meet new people in your community and to grow the kind of strengthen the community as well. If you only get 10 seminars at your own school, you're probably missing out on some really good seminars and some good learning opportunities and meeting new friends.
And I think seminars, instead of just strengthening the local jiu-jitsu community, I think it can actually grow it too. Let's say I can think of Frank Mir was in town for a seminar here not too long ago at Valor Martial Arts. They bring in a lot of good seminars. And most people who have ever watched the UFC will know who Frank Mir is. And they see Frank Mir's in town and having a jiu-jitsu seminar. And, maybe if you share that on your Facebook page, you see some guy who's been wanting to train and his favorite fighter is Frank Mir. And then all of a sudden he sees Frank Mir's having a seminar for only $50 or whatever it is. What a great deal. And I get to go meet Frank Mir, get to learn from him. And then at that point, while you're there, guys like Byron may team up with you or somebody else, get to know them. And next thing you know, you get a new member for the local community and for your local gym.
Yeah. And the more we're working with other schools and other organizations in our community, the faster jiu-jitsu will grow as a whole. I know it can be a little bit threatening, I guess is maybe the word I'm looking for, to be supporting other schools or other organizations. But in the long run, it's only going to benefit all of us as jiu-jitsu grows and becomes more popular and more accessible.
I like that, Joe. And I think about talking with jiu-jitsu with my friends that don't train who are interested in it. If you live near the gym I train, 100%, that's where you should go. Like I love the gym; it's great. If you're 2 miles away, that's gonna work out great for you. If you live clear across town and it's gonna be a 40-minute drive for you, I have no problem recommending other gyms. I still want the person to train. Those other gyms are great gyms. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be able to deepen my friendship with you on a daily basis. But the more my friends that train, I know it's good for them. I want as many of my off the mat friends to start training. I don't care where they train. It's all good. I'd rather them train with me, obviously, I guess. But if it's between them, I recommend this one's a 45-minute drive and they don't want to do that or nothing at all. That's a mistake. I recommend, yes, jiu-jitsu. Let's see where is best for you. And I'm hoping it's with me, but if it's not, this is going to be a great opportunity here too. Don't do what's right for your friend. Treat them like don't deny another gym and what they're able to do for somebody. Help them out. Yeah. And I think knowing those people, like going to seminars, going to tournaments and that sort of thing, gets you out there to where you can say, you know what, okay, you're trying to decide between these two gyms. I've been in both those gyms in the past couple of years, and I got to say, if I had picked one, they're both fine, I'd pick this one over that one. And I know both the coaches, and they're both fine. But if you're leaning or asking my opinion, I'd choose this one over that one. It helps you make that decision for them, or help inform them with more knowledge from your base. What else can schools do to promote good things within the community?
When Hurricane Harvey came through, our community was affected in a delayed fashion. It rained up north of Houston for a few days, and after their flooding started to subside, that's when we started flooding. So after the storm, there wasn't any reason why we shouldn't have class. But my professor closed the school for a couple of days and went down and filled sandbags and, encouraged all the students that could come with him to come do that. And of course, put on your school t-shirt and go fill sandbags. And man, it's a great way. It's a great way for you to look good in the community. But if that's why you're doing it, that's going to be transparent. You want to do it because it's the right thing to do. It'll definitely pay dividends in the long run. And it helps build the school together. The guys that went and did that, they felt a strong sense of camaraderie, like we're all working together to benefit our community. So, and you don't have to wait for a hurricane, of course. It wouldn't hurt if you had a school to go serve at a soup kitchen once a month, or put on free women's self-defense seminars, something where you're giving back to the community, and the community will give back to you, I believe.
Yep, that's a good one, Joe. And when you're with those people, you're going to be having a good time. Like going to fill sandbags with 4 or 5 of your jiu-jitsu buddies shouldn't be a miserable day. I mean, it'd be a hard day, but you're doing good work for good people and with friends. Like hanging out with friends, doing tough things. I do that at work all the time. A lot of times it's pretty fun. So don't think of that as like, oh, that's a day I can't get back. Yeah, I'll donate my day to this. No, if you're with a half dozen jiu-jitsu buddies, you're going to have a good time. That's a good one. And organize it. I mean, that could be just as simple within. So a lot of gyms have Facebook groups where it's a little private, kind of like our Facebook, the BjjBrick private Facebook group. And you could ask, like, people all the time on Foxes are saying, hey, anybody want to go together and go up to Kansas City to do this, or anybody want to get a table at the fights together, or whatever. Like, they're just kind of popping those things up. Throw that, hey, anybody want to go help with this tornado relief that's going on? I don't know. Well, I think that's a great way to organize and strengthen a team.
Yeah, and you think about how important kids programs are to schools being successful. And you think about, as a parent, when I'm looking for something for my kid to do, of course, knowing jiu-jitsu and knowing what I know about life, I want them to take a martial art that's going to prepare them for life and give them some self-defense skills and stuff. But more importantly, I want to think about what kind of people are going to be looking after my kid. What kind of people is my kid going to be hanging out with? And when your jiu-jitsu school is out being active in the community and doing positive things, that's where I want to enroll my kid.
That's a really good point, Joe. You want good people watching your kid. Another thing I've seen a lot of schools do is put on like free, women's defense seminars. They're donating their time. They're teaching a valuable skill to women. A group of women. You're out there in the community. It's being shared all over. You're donating your time, and teaching a resource that is going to help somebody. You can also support organizations. I know we've got a guy here in town who does a lot for the We Defy Foundation. And, what a better foundation to get behind Jeremy Parrish. And he brings in people to have seminars and, to support that organization. And there's always, barbecues and stuff together afterwards. And, just things like that, supporting great organizations.
Yeah, if you want to support the BjjBrick podcast, you can do that on Patreon.
I set you up perfect.
That was too easy, Gary. I appreciate that, man. What Patreon is, it's a website that helps people who make stuff, a lot of times digital stuff, like podcasts and videos and that sort of thing. You'll probably seen this a lot on YouTube. A lot of YouTube providers have Patreon as well. Like every video, you pledge $1, or you might pledge $1 or $5 a month or something like that to help keep them doing what they're doing. We have got a lot from Patreon, and it really, as a small podcast, I know in Jiu-Jitsu, I think we're doing pretty well, but in reality, we're 3 guys at our houses talking about jiu-jitsu, trying to make this thing grow and trying to expose this to as many people as we can, unlike Gary a few years ago when he got in trouble. But don't know where that came from. That didn't happen. But
not that you know of, Byron.
That's true.
It could have happened.
But Patreon has been a big thing for the podcast here. Really helped us grow to where we're at, and we're wanting bigger and better things, to places to take this podcast and help more people. We have 3 new Patreon supporters. Thanks, guys. Richard, Steven, and Thomas. Man, I can't remember last week we got 3 new Patreon supporters. I don't think we ever had a week with 3 new ones. In fact, I think we went about 2 months without getting anybody new. But man, what an honor to get 3 new people signed up to support us on Patreon. And what you do, like these 3 gentlemen did, is that, hey man, I enjoy this podcast. I want to stick around. I want to be good. I'm going to pledge $1 per episode. And they go on there. They do that, and I mailed out a 5-inch BjjBrick gi patch, and I throw a sticker in the envelope as well, and send it anywhere in the world, basically. I've sent it to many different countries internationally. So that's how it works, and really the sticker and the gi patch are just tokens of appreciation. Obviously, in a month or two, like 4 or 5 episodes a month tick by, you'll have surpassed the value that you would have paid for that. But it's just like, hey, thanks so much for the support. Here's what we give you as a little gift, and after that, you're really helping the show get stronger and helping this community locally, internationally in the podcast. This is the world famous BjjBrick Podcast.
Definitely world famous.
Well, any podcast is world famous,
but not as famous as ours.
So, guys, since we're moving on, I know we're running out of time. Let's see if we can squeeze in an article real quick.
Yes,
we've got one here called "Never Again: Jiu-Jitsu Girl, Why I Train," and this is a good article. I appreciate it. So it starts out with, I'll read the opening paragraph because I think it's interesting. I stepped off the mats on Friday night with a grin on my face and my head held high. I paused in surprise as I passed the locker room mirror. The person looking back at me had an unfamiliar glow. She exuded energy, confidence, and happiness. In that moment, I realized that training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu had created a new strength in me, both on and off the mats. And I really think that's what Jiu-Jitsu is about. So I appreciated this article. She goes on to talk about how it has empowered her and kind of taken her out of the role of feeling like maybe women shouldn't be leaders, shouldn't be strong, shouldn't show some aggression. So I appreciated that. Gary, what did you think of the article?
The article's great, but I got to go back to that first paragraph that you were talking about right there. In that moment, I realized that training BJJ had created new strength both in me and both on and off the mats. We just spent, forever talking about how to get new people to join the gym, what we should talk about to get them to join the gym, how we should describe jiu-jitsu. And that right there is the essence of jiu-jitsu. Like maybe if they could read that right there, you looked into the mirror and you saw an unfamiliar glow, confidence, happiness, energy. That paragraph right there tells me what jiu-jitsu is all about. And maybe I just need to show that paragraph to people when, I'm telling them about jiu-jitsu. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I really like this type of blog where somebody just kind of shares what's going on with their jiu-jitsu and what's happening. I think that's super relatable to other people who are out there having, maybe a tough day or questioning what they're doing here. She's doing a great job with this blog, and her name's Karen, and the website's Running Reflections WI, maybe Wisconsin. I don't know. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Very positive thing, and it's just as a female, how much has helped her grow and develop in ways she didn't expect that it could, and it's great to see jiu-jitsu do that for somebody.
Yeah. This lady is an incredible writer. I've got to read another couple sentences here.
Gary.
When I near the end of a great read, I sometimes turn the pages slower, not wanting it to end. BJJ is a book with infinite possibilities, pages, and chapters. I can turn the page as quickly as I want with the reassurance that there will always be more to come. Basically, Jiu-Jitsu is so fun, but the cool thing is it's never going to be like that book that we know it's going to end. Jiu-Jitsu, we're going to learn forever. You know, Byron's a black belt, been a black belt for a few years. How many years, Byron?
3.
3 years. Been a black belt for 3 years. I guarantee you Byron's learning jiu-jitsu still every time he steps on that mat. And even when he's not stepping on the mat, just talking about jiu-jitsu and thinking about it, he's learning. It's great. You don't have to turn that page slowly. It's never going to end. You're always going to learn. This lady should write books.
Yeah, she should. Not only is it never going to end, but it always stays interesting. I've read novels before and gotten to like 50 pages from the end and feel like, I know how it's going to end. I just want it to be done, you know. like there's way too many pages left to wrap up this little story they're telling, and I don't think you'll ever run into that with jiu-jitsu. It's always interesting, almost like there's always a surprise on the next page.
Yeah, go check out the blog. She's got a lot of cool stuff, and like Gary's saying, she does a good job with the technique of being a writer. And it's great to have for something like that for the sport.
Yeah. How she can, put her emotions down in writing. That's a tough thing to do. And, jiu-jitsu, there's so many emotions that come through us. And, what she's saying is basically the way I feel. I'm not that guy who can put it into writing. And what she's put in writing is just has blown me away. Yeah.
And, Gary, we don't have an audiobook this week for you. But
Sweet.
What I'm going to do is just something that's never been heard of before, is I'm going to read word for word every article about jiu-jitsu Gary has ever written. So here we go. And that wraps up all of Gary's writing as a collection of his work there. Good job, my man.
Byron, you haven't seen my private collection.
I don't want to see anything like that. So, good work there, Gary. He's more of an audio guy.
I don't know if I'm audio or I don't know if I'm either.
Audio or visual.
Yeah.
We do have a social media guy, though.
Visual, and that would be Joe Thomas.
Well, we have a social media presence. It's a team effort. So check us out on Facebook. We've been trying to post some things that might be entertaining, might be inspiring, or might be educational. Make sure and check out our YouTube page. We've got a YouTube guy, and that would be Byron. He's got some good reviews on there and some other interesting things. So check us out there, and make sure and check out MySpace and see what Gary's been up to lately.
I can tell I'm not well liked on this show.
Oh, man. Had a good time. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better, guys. We'll see you on the mats.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.